Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, colleagues, partners and friends, and welcome to this side event on clearing the past, securing the future, addressing explosive remnants of war in the Pacific. My name is Dominic Woolsey. I'm an advisor at the Geneva International Centre for Humanitarian Demining, and I'm delighted to open today's discussion and to welcome a distinguished panel who bring a lot of knowledge and valuable experience to this important topic, and some of whom have travelled a very long way to be with us today, so thank you all for being here. So if you'll permit me a few words to start us off, we're meeting here today to draw attention to the problem of explosive remnants of war in the Pacific and the efforts being undertaken to address this long-standing problem. 80 years after the end of the Second World War, many Pacific Island nations remain haunted by the legacies of the past, as ERW continue to pose a threat to communities today. The continued presence of ERW restricts development opportunities and infrastructure investment across the region. It complicates climate resilience efforts and, tragically, still has the capacity to cause accidents, claiming lives and limbs. On top of all this, the Pacific region is vast, spanning thousands of islands across millions of square kilometres of ocean, with countries varying massively in size, population and geography. The context presents a wide range of challenges to effective mine action, not least a lack of international attention over the decades. At the same time, Pacific nations have demonstrated remarkable resilience. Having lived with this problem throughout living memory, Pacific Island nations and their partners have taken steps to address ERW, and in recent years there have been efforts to adopt a more systematic approach to clearance. My own organisation, GICHD, has been working to support Pacific states in recent years with the support of Australia. We've been working with both Solomon Islands and Palau to implement IMSMA and support standards and policy development. We also had the privilege of convening with 9 Pacific states and various mine action stakeholders at a workshop in Brisbane last year to discuss the main priorities for mine action in the region. It was clear from that discussion that there's really no one-size-fits-all for the Pacific, as the scale and impact of contamination varies greatly between countries, as does the existing mine action capacity. It was also clear that the historical approach in the region has really focused on EOD response, often relying on intermittent international military missions and less so on a more proactive survey-based approach. What was also clear was the profound lack of data available in many affected states, both historical and current, meaning that we really don't have a clear picture of the impact over time in the Pacific compared with other regions globally. What we also found throughout the workshop, and the biggest ask really from all the stakeholders there, was that there needs to be better coordination in the Pacific with a number of actors involved and really greater regional collaboration. There are also huge gaps in risk education and victim assistance service provision, and really the list of capacity development needs was very long indeed. So we really hope that today's discussion will help draw more international attention to some of those needs in this meeting. So I'm delighted to be able to introduce our 3 presenters today, each one of whom brings a unique perspective to these issues. Firstly, we have Karen Galukale, Secretary of of Ministry of Police, National Security and Correctional Services from the Solomon Islands. Next, we have Hansen Ingara Kizau, National Safety Officer from Palau's National Safety Office. And finally, we're joined by Callum Peebles, who's Director of Programs for the Middle East, North Africa, Afghanistan and Indo-Pacific at the Halo Trust. So we're going to have presentations from each of the speakers, and we'll really have ample time for discussion afterwards. So I'd ask you to please save any questions you have for the discussion at the end. So with that, let me turn to our first speaker, Karen. The floor is yours.
Distinguished Excellencies, delegates, colleagues and partners, I bring warm greetings from the Solomon Islands, and it is an honor indeed to join you today at this important gathering that highlights a shared and urgent concern, the presence and persistent danger of explosive remnants of war in our Pacific region. At the outset, I'd like to render my acknowledgement to the GICHD for inviting me to attend this meeting, and also for the ongoing collaboration that we have with the organization. I will be speaking on 4 points. My first point is on the extent of the UXO problem in the Solomon Islands. As mentioned by the moderator, Solomon Islands is also part of the South Pacific region, and we have a landmass of 28,000 plus kilometers extending over nearly 1,000 islands, comprising of 9 main island groups. The Solomon Islands, like many parts of the Pacific, still carries the legacy of intense fighting during the Second World War. More than 80 years later, explosive remnants of war, particularly the unexploded ordnance, or UXO, still remain a deadly and daily threat to the safety, livelihoods, and development of our people. From our capital city of Honiara to the outer provinces, communities have lived for generations with this burden. UXOs are found in residential areas, agricultural lands, forest and coastal zones. Tragically, incidents involving UXO continue to result in injuries and fatalities, including among children. The presence of UXO also hampers infrastructure development, environmental conservation, and economic activities such as tourism and agriculture. And we are a group of small island countries. Resources are very limited, and with the continuous existence of this UXO, it's really challenging to see economic development happening. My second point is on the current capability of police in dealing with the problem. So we have our police, we call it the Royal Solomon Islands Police Force, through our existing explosive ordnance disposal team, who has long carried the responsibility of responding to UXO finds. So it's more of a reactive approach. This team operates under difficult conditions with limited resources, covering vast and remote areas, often accessible only by boat or air. Our officers have attained up to level 3 of the International Mine Action Standards. Despite these constraints, our EOD officers have shown commendable dedication, professionalism, and courage. However, the sheer scale of contamination far exceeds current national capacity, and there is a clear need for increased investment in training, equipment, and long-term planning. My third point, current work of Halo Trust and government vision on UXO clearance. In this context, our government warmly acknowledges and appreciates the support of Halo Trust, which has commenced operation in our country in 2022. Halo's work has been instrumental in building a national baseline survey of UXO contamination through a non-technical survey, and by far strengthening the capacity of our national institutions. Halo is working closely with our police and communities. It's helping to make our villages safer, our lands productive, and our future more secure. And the government vision is for this support to continue. It's a role model of effective collaboration between our national authority, international technical agencies, and donors. My fourth point, GICHD supporting the development of the national UXO policy. So as I mentioned earlier, that the GICHD has assisted us at the strategic level in developing a UXO policy, and recently we also received support in the development of our national mine action standards that is going before cabinet for approval. And we also received some technical support in terms of just introducing the IMSMACO to our technical officers, and we are still at the stage of just trying to really understand and continue developing that mechanism within our system. It is yet to come alive, but we are hoping that it should be in full operation very soon. And at this note, I wanted to really acknowledge again that ongoing technical support from GICHD. Looking ahead, our government envisions a sustained, well-coordinated UXO program that is fully integrated international development, and disaster risk reduction strategies. We aim to establish a dedicated national authority to oversee mine action and improve coordination with partners and affected communities. In fact, the session this morning, I'm so privileged and grateful that I'm part of the discussion because it really helps me to understand the importance, the important steps that we can take in terms of really developing a national mine action authority in country. And it's just in the recent time that we recently recruited a director to start off the work in terms of building up UXO coordinating office. But this time I just want to sound out our acknowledgement again to the support that we are receiving from the United States, Australia, Japanese government, and others on various bilateral and multilateral support in terms of UXO clearance, not only in Solomons, but in the South Pacific as well. Way forward, and the way forward that I wanted to just stress is we still wanted to see the need for enhanced regional cooperation among Pacific Island countries who are facing the similar challenges. We need to see greater international support, including technical and financial assistance. There is also a need for continued partnership with humanitarian mine action organizations and the empowerment of local communities, including youth and women in UXO risk education and response. Lastly, in closing, we are reminded that while the legacy of war still lie beneath our soil, our collective action today has the power to remove these dangers and restore dignity, security, and opportunity to our people. Let us continue to work together, governments, UN agencies, NGOs, and donors, to clear the past and secure a safer, more resilient Pacific Island region. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be presenting ERW context of Palau. So, I think. Sorry. So, Palau is a very small island nation in the Western Pacific. It is made up of 340 islands spread across 462 kilometers square. While we are small in size, our rich culture, history, and natural beauty make us truly a unique nation. Our economy largely depends on subsistence, agriculture, tourism, with most of our population around 17,600 as of 2023. Most Palauans live on Koror, Palau, Pililiu, and Angar Islands. However, our coastal development also makes us a highly vulnerable to climate change because we are facing a rising sea levels, storm surges, increasing temperatures, which pose serious risks to our homes, livelihood, and environment. So to address this issue, the Palau Development Plan of 2023 to 2026 was introduced to focus on adaptation, mitigation, and disaster risk management. But climate change is not the only challenge we face. Palau also carries a lasting burden from World War II. So between the September to November of 1944, Pililiu and Angar Islands were battlegrounds for intense clashes between Japanese and American forces. So the conflict left behind approximately 2,800 tons of ERW. 80 years later, the ERW still pose a significant threat to public health, safety, and development. And unfortunately, the extent of the full contamination of UXO remains unknown. And this makes a comprehensive survey a crucial step. So, recognizing the urgency of this issue, the government of Palau has established ER, ERW response framework. Yeah, ERW response framework. So, our main objective is to ensure the safety of our people, visitors, by eliminating or eradicating the ERW, reduce the socioeconomic impact of UXO on our communities, protect our environment and cultural heritage from these dangers of remnants of war. So to achieve these goals, we have put key mechanisms in place. We have UXO Advisory Committee, which work to settle national standard that aligns with International Mine Action, UNMAS, standards. We have also a UXO Technical Working Group that provides expertise in developing quality and performance guidelines. And we also have a National Safety Office that coordinates these efforts by ensuring compliance and effectiveness. Palau also has taken a strong stance on ERW issue internationally. We have signed and ratified the Convention on Cluster Munition in 2008, ratified in 2016. We have also concurred Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Convention 2007, and it was ratified in 2008. Moreover, our ERW management strategy is closely aligned with Sustainable Development Goals, emphasizing safety, environmental sustainability, and community well-being. In Palau, we have only two mine action operators. We have NPA, who does terrestrial operations, and we also have GICHD, Japan Mine Action Service, who does underwater clearance. Despite our progress, Palau continues to face challenges. One major hurdle is conducting underwater survey. In this, we require specialized equipment, trained personnel. Recruiting and retaining skilled experts is another ongoing difficulty. So to address this, we rely on evidence-based land release approach, which help us determine hazardous areas through combination of historical military records, local reports, and direct observations of ordnance. So to move forward, the government has outlined several strategic measures. We will continue to support NPA and GICHD by ensuring that the clearance operations are well coordinated and effective. We will continue to utilize the current activities of evidence-based land release approach to survey and do the clearance, EOD spot task, call-outs, and explosive risk education. We will also continue to prioritize risk assessment for development project, and we will also enhance data collection and management with plans to implement IMSMACOR by late 2025 or early 2026. We will reinforce national standards to align with international best practices and update national ERW strategy and action plan for a more systematic approach. We will also continue to support AMPC and CCM and adhere to their obligations. Lastly, we will promote regional collaboration by using 2026 Pacific Island Forum as an opportunity to raise awareness and strengthen partnership in ERW risk reduction. Finally, we will focus on securing financial resources, raising awareness among international donors and NGOs, is a crucial step to sustaining our clearance effort in the long run. So through this combined effort, Palau is committed to protecting its people, preserving its environment, and ensuring that the remnants of wars are no longer hinder our progress. Together, we can turn this historical challenge into safer, more sustainable future for our nation. Thank you very much.
Quick sound check, because I'm too tall for the mics. Can everyone hear me? Yep, great. Thank you very much to my distinguished panel members for their excellent speeches. I can't imagine what it's like talking on a panel after you've done 3 days worth of travel and 3 hours worth of sleep. So my thanks go to my panel members. My name is Callum Peebles. I'm Director of Programs for HALO's Eastern Regions. I'm just here to offer HALO's operational perspective on our operations in the Solomon Islands. We've been working there since 2023, and we're hoping to open up a program again with US funding in Papua New Guinea later on this year. Why are we here discussing this? Well, I think as is very plain, the problem of UXO and explosive remnants of war in the Pacific Islands is not well known. It's not been tackled because of the remoteness of the location, because there's an absence of data, and arguably a lack of advocacy, and to an extent a lack of political will to support this challenge. So thank you all for making the effort to come here today and join us and listen in. I thought I'd give just a little, that's me again. I thought I'd give you a little more context on the military history of the Solomon Islands and New Guinea. This is a map of the Solomon Islands in eastern New Guinea. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Japanese sought to isolate Australia by advancing through the South Pacific, seizing the Solomon Islands and parts of New Guinea at that time. From 1942 to 1944, US and its allies developed an island-hopping military strategy known as Operation Cartwheel, and slowly drew back control over those islands using heavy naval and aerial bombardment, along with amphibious landings using tens of thousands of troops. Over that period, both sides threw in more and more resources until it became effectively a war of attrition, which the Allies eventually won. I'll just draw, I don't think I've got a laser, if I can magic up a laser point, I'll just point to that island there. I think I'm going to pull that up on the next slide. That's, this is the Lunga perimeter on Guadalcanal in the Solomons. The US Marines took possession or landed in Guadalcanal on the 7th of August 1942, and they captured the airport, which you can see just up in the northeast corner, the airfield at Henson. That's now the international airport for the Solomon Islands. From August until February 1943, both sides fought for possession of that airfield and other port areas until the Japanese finally withdrew in February 1943. The yellow dots you can see all over the place indicate locations where the Solomon Islands Police Force have actually destroyed items or caches of munitions. And the blue dots you can see are where HALO Trust teams have found items and referred them to the Solomon Islands Police. So far, HALO has identified 21 million square meters of contaminated land that requires subsurface clearance, and over 2,800 odd items of unexploded ordnance that have been referred again to the Solomon Islands Police Forces. And this is the sort of thing that we're finding. the impact is significant. The combination of those aerial and naval bombardments, ground artillery, mortars, and close combat fighting means we find there's a huge amount of ERW across the Pacific, across Solomon Islands. And as you saw in the map, the most densely contaminated areas are ports and airfields, unsurprisingly, but also that is where population density now is at its highest, so the impact is therefore greater. Just to zoom in on that map briefly, just to let you know that the red stuff in the right hand, red polygons in the right hand side indicate where there's housing and agriculture development. The orange part in the center of that right hand picture represents where the National Peace Park is going to be established. The yellow areas in the map indicate a future site of affordable housing in Solomon Islands. And the purple part indicates where there's been evidence of explosive harvesting for fishing. But it's not those small items only that are found, as I'm sure you expected to see here today. There's an awful lot of large-scale ordnance in this area. On the left-hand side are two 500-pound US bombs which were found in a palm oil plantation in Oro province in Papua New Guinea. And on the right, as you can read from the news report, 200 some artillery projectiles were found underneath a school. They were only found when workers were excavating for a septic tank, and I think all of us in this room can understand what the impact of that might be on a school in the Solomon Islands. So that was lucky. This is in Papua New Guinea, a balsa wood processing factory in Rabaul. A detonation occurred here, luckily overnight on the 23rd of October 2023. There were no casualties, but you can see the implication of such a detonation. The factory itself was destroyed, and as were the surrounding buildings. But there have been casualties. This is Doreen Noda. She lost her son Charlie, an accountant, and his friend Rasif Hilly, who worked at the international airport, during a church fundraising event when an item of an artillery shell exploded beneath a barbecue pit that was being set up at the time. And it's tricky to get data. I think that's one of the messages we want to get across. And in fact, my data even now has been updated this morning, so it amounts to 7 people, not 6. But in 2021, we know that there were at least 4 people who were killed by buried ordnance that detonated under a barbecue pit in the Solomon Islands. This is in the vicinity of Honiara, the capital. Also, 2 people were killed, unfortunately, when they were trying to remove explosives from 2 white phosphorus projectiles. And again, as I referred to earlier, there is a growing industry of blast fishing in the islands, and that demand will continue to grow. I did some Googling this morning, and the absence of data makes it difficult to do this, but just as a rough measure, if you consider that the island that we were talking about in Guadalcanal and Solomon Islands has a population of 160-some thousand according to the latest census, 7 people died in 2021, which leads to a basic mathematical calculation of 1 accident for every 21 or 2,000 people. If you compare that to Cambodia, there's a population of 17 million people, and in 23, I think around 32 accidents occurred. That's an accident of 1 in every 500,000 people. So the impact on the people in the Solomon Islands is so great as it makes it surprising not to be known, not to be greater known. So for HALO, what are we doing? Well, since 2023, we've been conducting non-technical survey in the Solomon Islands. We use digital GPS manufactured by a company called Trimble, which gives us 10-centimeter accuracy on the items we're finding. This is obviously very useful in dense jungle areas where we often find ourselves. This data is being recorded into HALO's global information management system. We're recording that, and we intend to port that data straight across to the national IMSMA database as soon as it's ready. We're trying to digitize everything, so at least from now, from when we're working, there is clear data and clear information, and we're trying to gather more. What we're also doing with funding from the Swiss government is develop a UXO guide for the Pacific Islands, which can be used by all operators, and that's in coordination with GICHD, our colleagues there. In addition to the operations on the ground, HALO teams have been engaging with members of the Pacific Island Forum in order to push for this problem to be recognized at a higher, more political level. For those that don't know, the PIF, or PIF as it's known, consists of 19 country members, including Australia, New Zealand, Nauru, Solomon Islands, Fiji, etc. The PIF's vision in the framework for Pacific regionalism is for a region of peace, harmony, security, social inclusion, and prosperity, so that all Pacific people can lead free, healthy, and productive lives. The forum leaders endorsed the 2050 Blue Pacific Strategy. Interestingly, that does mention UXO, but only in a submarine framework. In 2018, the members adopted the Bowie Declaration on Regional Security. The 54th Pacific Islands Forum leaders meeting is happening this year in September in Honiara in the Solomon Islands, and it's a really an opportunity for leaders to renew their commitment to UXO clearance, to refocus their attention on a 2012 UXO strategy that does exist, but also to galvanize international support for the clearance of unexploded remnants of war in the Pacific. So just to conclude, and thanks very much for your time, I'm sure I've run over. So there's, as we've heard, there's a requirement for a regional effort here. The problem is far greater than just the problem of one island alone. National surveys is definitely a critical requirement for the Pacific. We need to understand what the problem is. There's obviously a need then for battle area clearance, for explosive ordnance risk education, which we are trying to do, using funding from the United States government. EOD, as we heard my fellow panel member Karen describe, EOD is being delivered by the Solomon Islands Police. But as organizations like HALO try to gather more information about items, so the pressure will build on individuals with EOD qualifications. So the requirement for more is going to grow. Survivors need support, especially considering we don't know who they are and we don't know how many there are. And a network needs to be established. But I think the critical point that I want to make is that information is lacking. We need information to understand this problem, to help solve a problem that, to be fair, should have been dealt with decades and decades ago. Thank you very much.
Okay, fantastic. Can you hear me? Mic check. You can hear me? Fantastic. So thank you very much to all three of our presenters. Today we have about 35 minutes for discussion, and so we're looking to take questions from the audience. We have a couple of prepared questions, but if there's any immediate questions off the bat, then please just raise your hand and go ahead. Yes, please, at the back.
Hello, it is Ali, and nice to meet you. I want to ask you, according one of your slides, you mentioned that more than 20 million square meter of the land has been identified for subsurface clearance. Could you tell me about the depths of the objects, or how can I say, give me an example about the maximum depths you found something over there. And may I ask you another question, or what?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. And you mentioned that about 540 EOR session delivered. For how many percent? All of them were a new person, or you re-educate every, for example, 6 months or every year? Could you please explain about that? Thanks. Thank you.
Just checking you can hear me. Is that okay? Great. So I just want to inform the audience that I haven't been to this program yet, so I'm standing in on behalf of my colleagues. So please forgive me if I get something wrong here. But thanks very much for the question. In terms of subsurface clearance, it's really difficult to know how deep these items are. There's going to be an effort, obviously, to try and establish the depth of those items. We might be talking about anything from 15 centimeters down to, obviously in the case of airdrop weapons, they can go a lot deeper. So at the moment, what we're doing is trying to gather that information so we can understand a little bit more. We gather as much evidence as we possibly can by talking to local communities to understand that technical challenge. But until we actually get to work there, it's going to be challenging to understand really the depths of munitions that we find. In terms of EORE sessions, that is, unfortunately, a level of detail I don't have the exact specifics on. But what HALO tends to do is we will try and obviously target areas that are likely to be affected. We can deliver risk education sessions to groups, to school children, for example, to community groups, but it does depend on the circumstances. I'm pretty sure that our EORE is being delivered to groups of individuals, and as a part of best practice, what we try to do is ensure that there is a repetition of that EORE that's delivered. Whether it's 6 months or a year, I'm not quite certain, but frankly, the job is so big here that we're just trying to get out there and deliver as much information as possible. Our teams have also been featured on local radio stations, which is a useful way to communicate. So you could argue that the impact is being heard there, but it's a big job, and hopefully that gives you some sense of an answer that you were looking for. Thanks for the question.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions now? That's Steve.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Stephen with UNDP. It's really great to see this this side event. I'm massively excited. As a New Zealander, I'm very invested in the Pacific. It's very interesting to hear everything is land focused, and it was nice to hear Callum say the job. Well, not sorry, it's not nice. It was good. It's interesting to hear how big the issue is on land. Do you think that the issues underwater are going to be more significant, both in scale and difficulty? And is there what are the short-term thoughts about actually addressing underwater contamination? Over.
Yeah, great question. I mean, just an immediate response from me, and then I don't know, Hansen, if you want to take that up. But I know that the centre has done a bit of work in years gone by on that topic, and the question of because there's a huge amount of underwater ordnance in wrecks as a result of the naval battles in the Pacific campaign. Many of those wrecks pose an environmental hazard in that they are full of oil or other petroleum products, and there are sensitivities around which items to intervene with or not, because the risk of those items initiating underwater poses a big risk to, for example, marine wildlife, and the shock waves can be very damaging for marine mammals, for example. So there needs to be a very specific approach, clearly, for underwater clearance. There is a mismatch, as I'm sure many people know, between the International Mine Action Standards, which are land-based, and the marine standards, which are managed by a different organization. And I think that's an existing issue in the Pacific as well. And I don't know, I mean, maybe, Hansen, if you want to add something about your work with GICHD in Palau, because Palau's got a lot of underwater clearance.
Thank you, Dom. Well, we do have issues in the underwater clearance surveys in Palau, but fortunately we do have the GICHD team, who is they're expert in underwater clearance. So they have been, through their effort, they have been clearing one of the shipwreck that is called the helmet wreck, which that helmet wreck had 200 plus depth charges, and it took them years to clear it up. And fortunately, this month, the GICHD was able to clear it up and provide a report to the national government that they were able to come to this far. And so, going back to Palau, it's going to be my task to present it to the authorities. That's all I can say. Thank you.
If I can add, in Solomon Islands, it is also an issue, but we don't really have a good mechanism in place of confirming the data. But from historical records, there was heavy fighting as well that involves big marine water as well. So in the recent time, we recently entered into an MOU with the U.S. Department of Defense, and one of the projects that they will be assisting us is on developing the capability for underwater for ERW. Thank you. It is still a long way to go, though.
Please, Eunice.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation, very informative. I just want to add on to what Mr. Hansen Irasao from Palau mentioned about the underwater clearance of Helmet Wreck. Helmet Wreck, its close proximity to our national port, the marine port, was very important to Palau, because if with that amount of depth charge, if it would have been triggered, would have detonated the whole port of Palau, including the petrol bulk plants, and the domino effect of that to the residential area close by. So that's why we prioritized it, and we partnered up with GICHD. I must express Palau's great appreciation and support for GICHD, because it was a long time, over a span of maybe 4 to 5 years, because these things have been in the underwater for 80 years. Sea corals and have covered them and cemented them, so they had to use really specialized underwater tools to slowly crack the corals and take this depth charge apart, float them up to the surface, and then bring them by boat, because they couldn't transport them by land. It just posed more threat to the population, so it was transported by land all the way to half of the island, and then brought to the demolition range to be properly disposed of. So I must really express appreciation to the people and government of Japan for that support, because that was a very big security threat for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and what you're saying also reminds me of something we discussed in this workshop we held last year, which is that a lot of those marine wrecks are close to the ports, and a lot of the land-based contamination is around the areas where people live, not only in Palau, but across the various Pacific islands that are affected. Yeah. Yes. Oh.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that we prioritize coastal cleanup, because we still live off our coastal. We still eat from fish for our food, and the crustaceans and the seaweed. We still harvest them for our substance of food. So it is part of our aquaculture food source. That's why it's prioritized underwater. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions from the audience at this juncture? No? Oh, yeah, Gus, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, if I could just say, for the speakers, if you could just introduce yourself and your organization before you speak, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, my name's Gus, and I working for MPA. I have 3 questions, and because of my knowledge of Palau, they're not really being addressed to Hansen. It's more for Solomon Islands and Halo. And the first one might be for you, Karen,
you mentioned national standards, and a question was asked about clearance depth. And has that been thought about and detailed in the national standards? And then is there discussions about residual contamination, which would be items that are found greater than that depth at a later stage, and how Solomon Islands will respond to that, or is that too far in the future for now? Sorry to put you on the spot. And my other question is for you, Callum, is a lot of polygons. Have you mapped out evidence criteria in order to design those polygons yet? And then my third point is for anyone on the panel and anybody from the floor, is coordination. I mean, these are munitions that are very, very similar, if not same, in nature, that have been deployed during the same conflict across multiple islands. Hence, there should be similarities in the way that we respond to this, and what kind of coordinated mechanisms can we put in place to ensure that we learn from one another, apply best practices from one location to the other, etc., etc. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, I think it's very technical, so I won't be able to respond. But if I can just pick someone that I'm looking at, Stan. Stan has been very instrumental in terms of providing technical support when we worked on the standards. So perhaps if you can chip in on the question.
Thanks for this, Karen. So in terms of the standards, basically standards are referring to the all reasonable effort, and one of the comments we put there that needs to be still worked on, but it's also referring to the operator's SOP, which will be accredited. So I cannot give you a figure on the depths, but this is something that we will be looking. But I will use this opportunity also to say that this is ongoing work, and towards the end of this year we will have a technical workshop. I think, Gus, you're familiar with that, where we will be discussing on the regional level explosive ordnance risk reduction mechanisms and residual contamination in the Pacific, specifically for Solomon Islands. Well, our participants will be from Solomon Islands, from Palau, from PNG. There will be international operators working there. So this will be the opportunity to kind of fine-tune some of these things and maybe capture them in the what we call all reasonable effort, if that can be defined on a regional level, or at least on a level of each program.
Digital GPS systems that we've got will help, but we do need to be thinking very carefully about just plopping big red polygons on there. The maximum ones, the size is 60,000 square meters. It's not all polygons, I'm reliably informed, but we're very conscious.
Yeah, this one works. This one is.
Oh. This one doesn't?
Oh, sorry.
So I did need to speak louder. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, thank you. Ah, look at that. Only Gus could hear me. Yeah, it was for you, Gus, though. Just to summarise my last points, of course, I don't need to add anything to Stan's points. And in terms of our gathering evidence for polygons, we will have a set of evidence markers that we will take. But the challenge I was talking to only Gus in the front row about was that. What we don't want to do is create a huge number of polygons on a small island base. We're very, very conscious of the implications of essentially creating very large polygons in a small geographical area. So it's one really worth consideration. Your final point is on coordination, and you're right. I mean, the point about our UXO guide is one little thing that we would like to develop to help all operators across the region. And my point about the Pacific Island Forum is really to try and elevate the point so that there is a legislative mechanism in place which states can get behind in order to enable that. It's really compelling to hear everything that Karen and Hansen are saying about the development of these infrastructures. But you know, what I'm learning is that it's just nascent. Unbelievably, it's nascent, you know, in spite of the fact that this problem has existed for 80 years. So, you know, again, really wonderful to have people here to listen, but clearly there's a problem and something that needs to be developed in terms of coordination. Thanks.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, just off the back of the discussions we had last year and a few more conversations here in Geneva, to our knowledge, we know at least 9 sovereign states that are explosive ordnance affected in the Pacific. Within those states, I really think Solomon Islands and Palau are leading the way in terms of national commitment on this issue. So on one hand, there are a lot of competing priorities that we've heard about in terms of development, in terms of climate change adaptation, in terms of education, that are priorities for those governments. And one of the challenges we have is to elevate the issue of explosive remnants of war, given that, you know, pretty much everyone has lived with that problem throughout their lives in the Pacific. The other issue is that in the past there has been more regional coordination on this. There was a 2011 UXO strategy which covered was basically the Pacific Island Forum was the agency that was meant to be the coordinating body for that strategy. Over time, I think the momentum was lost under that initiative, and we heard from the PIF in Brisbane about some of the reasons for that. I think there are opportunities coming up now. Fiji is leading a declaration at the moment where there may be an opportunity in August, September to bring disarmament into a kind of regional declaration, but really something that's missing is a high-level political commitment. At the moment, we have the Boy Declaration and the Blue Pacific Strategy, and I believe UXO is mentioned in the Blue Pacific Strategy, but really under environment and not as its own priority. So that's one element of coordination. And then there's the more operational level of coordination, which is around which organizations are working in the Pacific. We know that there are military missions like Render Safe, which is led by the Australian Defence Force, that visits various countries on a biannual basis. There are very disparate and often lacking information management processes in place for really understanding which areas have been cleared and what the needs are in those different countries. And I think there's a job to be done there in terms of aligning all the work that's being done by different organizations like Halo Trust, like MPA, with the states themselves and with some of those international missions. But I actually wanted to kind of take your question and pose a question to you, Karen, because there is some coordination being done on the technical level in terms of training, and I was hoping you could talk a little bit about the Center for Excellence in the Solomon Islands and some of the EOD training that's being conducted there with some other states.
Thank you for the question. So over the years, we have assisted our police officers through the funding from the US government in getting them to attain level 3 of the UNMAS. So with that capability in place, we continue to get police officers from other Pacific Island countries to come to Solomons to also receive some trainings, because we have trainers, certified trainers who can sort of deliver the UNMAS 1 to UNMAS 3. And then we made a proposal to the Australian government if they can support us to establish a center of excellence for training. And there's positive response, and we are currently working to develop a design, a concept, and then a design for that center of excellence. So it just goes to show the commitment from our government in terms of just exchanges in also helping other Pacific Island countries to reach that level. So that center of excellence is, we wanted that to be for the region. There. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. So, are there any other questions from the audience? Okay. We still have 15 minutes, so if anything occurs, then don't be shy. I think some of the questions prepared have already been addressed, but I wanted to ask more broadly, what are, and this is, for the whole panel, anyone who wants to take it, what are the main, what have been the main barriers to progress up until now? Because we're still talking about this in 2025. Has it really been a lack of international commitment to addressing this issue? And how do we change that, in your view?
I think I'll start off. In my observation, I think there's lack of political will by firstly in the region as well as in the national level. And then the other challenge is not really having a strategic approach to dealing with UX. So from many lessons that we've learned after, I'm speaking for Solomon Islands, after attending various exchanges with the support from GICHD, what is becoming clear now to us is to really have a system in place in the national level. So we already, just like Palau, we have an UXO policy. We also have an action plan in place. I think we just need to continue doing recruitment at the strategic level, and also increasing our workforce, the manpower for police in responding at the operational level. But importantly is to have a mechanism in place that would sort of continue with the momentum of attracting donor support into our space. As I mentioned earlier on, that we've recently established just a small unit within my ministry, the UXO Coordinating Office, and we have a director on board just 3 weeks ago. So I was telling the moderator that I think it's important to get the officer here. He needs to be exposed to the mine action and also learning from other countries as well on your experiences. Thank you.
Callum, you go first, and then we'll have
absolutely. Thanks, Karen. I think Karen, have I done it again? Is this one? No, this is okay. Yeah, I mean, I think Karen makes the point about a sort of a regional framework and a clear plan that needs to exist to help things forward. I think boldly, I'll also add the fact that there's sort of bigger geostrategic points at play. You only need to read US foreign policy on countering Chinese influence to understand that there is more interest in the area. And so that is a factor that I don't think we can necessarily ignore. That was the only point I would add to what Karen had said. Thanks.
Yeah, I think for Palau, I think there are mechanisms in place to address our challenges. There's action plans and there's policy yet to be updated. But I think one of the challenges that I face personally is in the safety office who oversees the technical working group with NPA and GIMAS is the fact that to get the stakeholders together, especially the UXO Advisory Committee, And that is one of the things that has been addressed. Me and Stan have addressed that throughout our dialogue a couple of months ago. And I think it's something that my office and the government of Palau has to step up, and this is a reality that we face. So everybody in that different sector of government will have their input in that committee to strengthen the work of ERW in Palau. That's what I can say.
Thanks. I'm not seeing any hands, but I would like to add that we were really hoping to bring Papua New Guinea to this meeting as well, but unfortunately the representative from Papua New Guinea couldn't get the approval to travel. But we hope to bring out more representation from the Pacific to these meetings in future, to have that element of international coordination and awareness of the problem. Papua New Guinea, PNG, were really vocal in the workshop we had about the needs there. There was they were reporting accidents, although they don't have an accident database. There were examples where communities were selling UXO to tourists who were then getting picked up in the airport. So, and the needs are quite significant there, and as isn't the case in some other Pacific island states as well. So from our perspective in GICHD, we're really looking at which states can we support to take more national ownership of this problem, and a more systematic approach that's based on identifying where the ordnance is and then clearing it, as opposed to the current status quo, which is that the community will report items, they'll be identified by the police, and then often left for an intervening period for often an international actor to come in and address them. So so this is our perspective in GICHD. So I'll give one more opportunity to the audience in case there's any last questions. And I don't see any. So with that, just want to thank, first of all of you for being here and for listening, and obviously to our panelists, and especially those who've traveled a very long way to come and speak to everyone here today. So if we could give a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you. Thank you very much.